I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. And I'd like everybody to stand, please, and join us on the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the Tuesday, December 17, 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any corrections, additions, comments regarding the meetings that Michelle sent? No?
I think that this, what is
You
it?
got?
Just the one page, it just got returned down to the next line.
Oh, there's a, okay.
There's a giant
So page,
F-E-A-F-I. I don't know what page that is.
wait, it's not page.
6, 5, 6. Page 6.
Okay.
That was the only, I mean, it's,
Mine are just
yeah.
paragraphics. Okay, I can show Michelle that. Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes as noted? Andrew? Second? Sandy? All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously, Michelle? Get that later. And so our first item on the agenda under old business this evening is Villas at Centrica.
Hi, good evening. My name is Julian Clark. I'm with Plumley Engineering, here with Carl Ashley, the owner and developer of the property on Gentry Road. It's about 8 acres in size, and he'd like to subdivide it into plus or minus 26 residential lots. It's currently zoned R1, and single-family detached and attached are an allowed use. And the lots, as we show them, meet, I believe, the various zoning criteria for an R1. I guess the big topic of conversation in the past few meetings has been Gentry Street. And as I understood it from Carl, he's had some discussions with the cemetery and the mayor, and the street is indeed a village street, to our understanding. Along those lines, we established or proposed to establish a right-of-way 10 feet off the existing eastern edge of pavement. That's in line with what the cemetery is looking for. Gives them room to utilize their property. We would then go 50 feet west of that to set a 50-foot right-of-way for Gentry Street. The 50 feet, I believe, is an allowed right-of-way width in the village.
Can you, I can't, what do you mean?
So we're going to establish this right-of-way here, 10 feet off the edge of pavement.
Yep.
We show 60 on this, but after some further discussions, we're going to make this 50. And then this street basically stays the same, except we'd also like to reduce the right-of-way of our street to 50 feet, which allows us to increase the depths of the various lots. Because recall, the discussion really has been the available building area on the property. So that would establish the road, the right-of-ways, the use of Gentry Street. We still propose to make improvements to Gentry Street, to make it 24-foot wide, and to mill it and put down new pavement on top of it to make it more usable for the village. And Carl. So that brings us to the setbacks. If everybody's in agreement with the streets and right-of-way widths and et cetera.
I think we just need a little bit of discussion on the street, but if you want to finish your presentation, and we can just go back to that.
No, we can talk about the streets.
Okay, so the board, I would need to bring you up to speed a little bit more. I've had also discussions with the mayor, and Carl's been talking with the mayor, and we have, yes? From the superintendent of
Superintendent of Public Works.
Public Works here, also representing the village. The mayor couldn't be here tonight. And there was a lot of confusion, which Carl will allude to also, about who owned the street and where the property line is, and, you know, if it was maintained by the village, and how long ago the cemetery gave an easement or deeded property, and it was actually kind of muddy. But as it turns out, Gentry Street is actually in the Onondaga County Registry a village street. So I think it just got muddy and didn't get cleaned up, but that's evolved since the meetings. So Gentry Street is actually a village street. However, it does not meet village standards for construction and also for width, which they're trying to mitigate right now. Can you clarify for me, the right-of-way on the cemetery side, did that change from the previous drawings?
I don't know if there was actually a right-of-way ever established, so we
Okay,
talked to
it
the
was shown,
cemetery.
it was shown,
Yes.
I think, on the other,
Yeah, I think we showed it based on centering it on Gentry Street itself.
I can go more historically, if you will. The original drawing was one that was developed based on a survey done by, the surveyor does surveys, not for myself and for the cemetery, and he had plotted what his road would be. I had further discussions with the cemetery, and they'd like to maintain their fencing 10 foot off of the edge of existing pavement, which is consistent with Tappan Street. So when there's a taking, or however the village got the land, they would normally take it with 3 rod, which is 49 and a half feet. Generally what would happen is you take the center line of the street they're using and split it in half. You know, you go roughly, you know, the 50% one side, 50% other. Talking that through, what we've proposed to do is actually go less into the cemetery than that, less invasive. Just go 10 feet off the existing pavement and then run the 50 feet back the other way. That also allows that easement to fully encompass the existing easement for the force main. So it
Okay.
worked out to really cover everything more effectively, not move the eastern edge of pavement, and then any addition we do will be on the western edge or towards
okay,
my
right.
property.
So the main is on which side of the,
The main is on the west side.
on the west side?
Yeah, so that we
Okay.
needed to go a little bit on the other side, you know, for any maintenance,
I
plowing.
just was clarifying.
Yep, yep.
So-
And everything around us is 50 feet. The taking would have been 50 feet. So that was where it's like, my only street in the adjacent area would be my new street at 60. And it really pinches me for giving the 40 feet for the people behind Cook. So
Yeah.
we looked at it and said, why am I the only one that's 60 feet when everything else is 50? And that's, you know,
I
started
don't know
looking
what
at that.
Tappan
So
Street is.
it's 50.
Okay.
Yeah. It shows on the drawing.
But everybody, you can see this dark line here is the addition of the street to widen it.
Does that help answer?
Yeah, yes. I was trying to bring everybody up to
Yeah.
speed because the mayor and I have had multiple emails going back and forth over the last few weeks, and I was trying to make sure everybody was up to speed on that. So when you say you'll improve the street, that means to village
Yeah,
standards?
working with that. I've actually contacted, I worked with previously, Salt Springs has been my primary go-to. I know they've done work in the village in the past, but it's called Salt Springs Paving. They're with Tobin Construction, so they do, you know, a lot of subdivision work. They're gonna come out and talk to me, and basically the idea would be to do millings, find out what we've got for a sub-base. There is a decent one. I mean, they brought a modular home down there this spring, but we don't know what it is. So we have to find out what it is and then bring it up to village spec was the intent.
Okay,
And like,
yes. Okay, everybody,
Are you gonna do any
all
borings?
that?
Yeah, that was the intent. Do some borings, find out what's down there, and then take it from there. Working with you, we'll have to talk. So,
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions about the roadway?
Just, Terry, the turnaround on the very end up here on the north end,
Thank you. I was gonna say the same thing.
Yes.
is that the one for fire apparatus, school bus, or is this gonna, it's continual through here, right? Is that the, for buses and garbage and anything far left up there?
That turnaround is what's there now.
I see that.
Yeah.
So,
Is that where the village owns some property past that still?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where the pump station is.
Pump station is to the west of that point, probably 5 or 6 lots.
Yeah,
It's
so-
almost to the very end of the extension. And I know, talking to Mayor Stebbins, they don't intend to take or do anything with that extension. But, so that turnaround is basically the end of the village's maintenance.
Does
For the road.
sanitary sewer easement there, Terry?
Yeah, I see the easement,
I
but
think that's where
it's
the pump station is, somewhere near there?
it's right there.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, so I would think that would come in with the review would be the fire department signing off as well, correct, Greg?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Greg, did you have any comments?
No, we sent the memo out today. Slightly different than the previous one because there's really not that much additional information.
Okay.
The roadway stuff and the right-of-way stuff is new. I just heard it tonight, so.
Yeah, we've been sort of slowly gathering other information.
Okay.
And I'll talk to Taryn about what we need for assessment of the existing road to determine what needs to be modified there. Obviously, things like the pump station needs to be designed for, or sewer for this subdivision. We're not even, we still have no topo. We don't have an
Yeah,
actual
we're
survey.
the ways to go, but we've been
Yeah.
so much back and forth on the street and the lot layout, we weren't gonna spend time and money
Yeah.
on that
Yeah,
stuff.
so, you're right, so what he's talking about is the sewer upgrades for the existing pump station that lacks the capacity.
If that pump station's even gonna be used,
Okay.
or what we're gonna do, so.
So we have some engineering work to do there. And the stormwater mitigation, you were looking for some information.
Yeah, they show something there, but it's all very schematic still.
Right,
Excuse me.
I think that's where we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Check. Okay. And we were going to ask for a survey also as we move along here, an updated survey that shows the property belongs to you, where the street is.
Streets, the right of ways, the actual, it's gonna all have to be included.
But you mean like a subdivision plat?
Well, we don't even have a boundary survey for this thing.
Okay, we have, we'll get one updated.
They're actually in there, but the boundary and that's what we're trying to determine is where the village owns the street. And what we're going to do is as we're creating descriptions, we create one for the village that would dedicate over and they could record or alongside.
There's some work to do there.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
do we need a variance because it is only gonna be 50? How does that, I guess, work if the village code says it's 60?
Good question. What's the question?
The right of way.
The right
The
of way.
right of way.
With that right of way being 50, because everything else around it is 50, does that require a variance for that?
Well,
Because it's new construction.
the minimum width, I don't see anything that says it's what our minimum is. We have to
I've got
find
to
out
look
what
to see if
that
the
is.
code has a specific requirement.
I didn't
60 is
see
pretty
it.
standard. 50 is done, especially in like a village area. Worst case scenario, we may have to take some other easements for lines that are outside of it or sidewalks or anything of that sort that, maybe village owned, but won't fit in easily. A lot of times that's going to happen like on the bends and curves and stuff like that.
Okay. So to be worked out in the future as we move through the process.
And really think about whether you want sidewalks. I guess there aren't, sidewalks on Cook.
Usually we want sidewalks everywhere,
I mean, right, I mean,
because we're a walkable village, right?
we're supposed to be, right?
We generally request sidewalks everywhere.
That would be fabulous. But I think they stop right now at Ford because they don't go past that.
Right.
School, right? Well, the school's not the issue because that's inside. It goes right down Tappan by my house. Down on the left-hand side if you're looking west.
Right.
And then it stops actually before the end of the cemetery at the last house on the street that goes to your left to head toward Downer. Because then there's the Catholic cemetery on the left-hand side. And there's nothing in that, it's maybe 50, 60 feet, and there's nothing on the right-hand side either. So
Right.
you would need to actually put something in to get to there or you'd have a gap.
Right, well, a lot of times that's how we use some of the sidewalk programs with the village to do infill between existing
That would be
sidewalks.
fabulous. And I'm sure whoever would buy these homes would love to have sidewalks into the village.
I'm sure they will.
Are we talking sidewalks on just one side of the street?
Which street are we talking about?
Or the new street?
Gentry?
No, our street.
Oh, your internal street.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Proposed street.
Oh,
Proposed
proposed.
street, thank you.
I mean, that's,
That's a good street name.
I think that's open for discussion. I mean, obviously, definitely one side of the street, but I think everybody'd have to chime in on their thoughts on that.
I would agree, at least one side. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, one.
Absolutely one
Flows
side.
all the way
It's a
up
heavily
Rhinebeck
walked street.
Crossing.
Right.
It will be too. Yeah.
So initially, everybody's thinking of the west side of the streets
Yeah,
because it would flow up to Tappan without crossing the street.
Yep.
right.
And then it would just dead end down on Hunter.
And then maybe someday we'll get sidewalks at Hunter. See how that works?
Oh, what, we annex into the sewers?
Yeah. Okay. Good comments, everybody. Let him catch up.
I'm good, are we ready
You're
to
good?
talk about?
Yep, let's talk about the setbacks.
So the R1 setback requirements are 40-foot front yard and 40-foot rear yard. We had proposed originally a 30-30, and after discussions at our last meetings, we, board asked and we agreed to provide 40-foot rear yard along Cook and Tappan, let's say. And we would still, at the time, request 30-foot rear yards for the, between the proposed street and Gentry, and 30-foot front yard setbacks everywhere. So that's probably still our request. We
Yes.
did do some quick sketches of some smaller type houses
Perfect.
showing.
Sure.
We were looking for.
Yeah, we've been through.
I can give you the impact.
There's enough for everybody.
Eight of them, so.
So figure one shows 40-foot rear and 40-foot front. And you can see, again, we did get an example of the three houses on the bottom there. They're not big houses, 1,700 square feet, 1,800 square feet. And then house C is 2,300 square feet, but that has a second story on it, second floor. The other two are just ranches. Each of them has a two-car garage on it. As you can see from the picture, basically houses A and B both would extend past the setback lines with a 40-40. And these, again, are big houses, or just something Carl found online that he thinks would be appropriate for this project. You can also see house C, which is a wider one but not as deep, fits in the 40/40, but basically takes up the whole width of the setback line, or the whole width of the available lot width. One question Carl had was, how do you guys view decks and sheds and stuff like that? Are they part of or separate from the setbacks?
Don't know the answer to that, gotta look.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know what the
You
rest.
start looking at ancillary structures and all of a sudden it's really
Yeah,
not fitting.
Sure. Yeah, so the garages kind of all protrude over the setback line.
For the two houses, yes, and then the wider house, or the other house, where we put it on the side, it fits, but there's not a lot of room there.
So what are you saying that you
So
want?
we were just showing, I guess you guys asked for pictures, kind of showing how
Yeah.
the 40/40 is work, so we did that. So then figure 2 is 40 foot. So basically figure 2 is what we had come with before. With the 40-foot rear yards along the west and south side, 30 foot between Gentry and the proposed street, and then 30 foot front yards everywhere. And you can see the picture is definitely much better there. We are still a little bit tight along the west side of the property. Again, there might be other house types that we can find that will fit. But again, we were just trying to meet the board's request to kind of show why we would like to have the variance.
Yes.
These are market typical houses that I think would sell. I mean, I can build houses inside the village's code, okay? They'd be the same houses that are on Ford Street that are 700, 800 square foot with a one-car garage. That's all that fits. That's not, the market's not demanding that. I'd never build the lots because I'd never be able to sell them. Because it would stop the project, because simply the only house that would fit are those, little 600, 700 square foot ranches with one-car garages in a 40/40. So that was our.
Lots.
It really, I understand that, but then why have a 7,500 zoning? This is, I know that.
It's a choice, Carl.
I understand it is. Another vehicle is a PDD, and then that brings everything into available, moving about, so.
So tell me again, on the Gentry Street side, what is the setback? I can't read it, it's too small.
30.
30?
And that takes into account what needs to be done for Gentry Street.
Yes.
And I take it you're trying to build just a garage, just a single story, rather than building up where you could come in a little bit, but essentially double, that's
Yeah.
slightly smaller, but
Currently that was market's calling for, really what's pushing the envelope isn't as much the housing part of it, but the fact that, with the advent of electric cars and everything, and people want two-car garages. You're just not marketing to one-car garage homes anymore. Even if they do want one car, they still want ones for the toys or want one for the stuff. The market's just calling for, and you look at a two-car garage, you're looking at 500 square feet of the footprint. It's, that's where we're really doing that. It has to be on one level, so.
Well, architecturally, I'm not fond of garage forward.
Amen.
I would agree.
Yeah, I'd like to see some variation on that as well. Probably not the exact houses that are intended to be built. I mean, whatever we are able to garner as far as the buildable footprint, we're going to find homes that fit inside the footprint and are architecturally appealing. But the intent of this was to show the impact of a normal
Yes.
ranch on the lot size.
Yeah, well, that's what we requested, because it's difficult, I think, to visualize if you're not used to looking at that type of thing. So house C still goes buildable line, north-south, no matter which you use. So if you reduce the front yard and rear yard setback, you get A and B inside the build line,
Yes.
is the synopsis.
Yep.
So what's everybody's thoughts on this?
I was just, I'm in the R1, R1 that talks about the accessory structures. No garage or accessory building shall be placed nearer to a side or rear property line than 5 feet, and for each foot of the height of such building exceeds 15 feet, the offset from the side and rear property line shall be increased by 1 foot. Don't ask me how that calculation is done right now. No detached garage or other outbuilding should be constructed nearer the front property than the main building. Okay, that's easy. But accessory, like a shed has a
Yeah, it doesn't mention
different,
decks though,
a different thing. We'll have to figure that out.
because I don't think it does.
I think it's 6 feet off the property line for a shed.
It has to be under
It says
100 square feet.
no nearer to a side or rear than 5 feet,
Yeah.
and for each foot of height the building exceeds 15 feet, the offset is increased by a foot.
Okay.
For an accessory structure?
That's what it says.
So 5 feet within. And it can't be.
So if the height is, what's the height of these structures?
Shed should not be 15 feet.
Right, unless they're really heavy.
I got it, okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You better go for
we
a
see them like 17 feet, but
They don't have a lot of space for a shed. Good thing there's a car garage.
Can the shed go in the rear yard?
no, it's the same.
Okay. So that little red square has got to be everything pretty much.
It's more critical.
So I think one of the things you need to do is envision the feel of the street. If the garages are forward and are up against the line, you've got cars parked in front of them,
Right.
and you got a closer, narrower right of way. Because your right of way now is going to be 5 feet, side shorter, narrower. You still have 30 feet, which is more than enough to put a car in. You're not going to put 2 cars back to back. So just kind of I think you should try to visualize what that's going to look like.
Right.
And, if the guard, in the worst case scenario, if the garages are up forward on
Right.
that front setback line.
Yeah, 30 feet, car's close to 20 feet. So
Yes, I would count on 20 to,
Yeah.
22 feet realistically.
Right,
because
so
you
you
need
can't
space
put one in front of the
garage.
other without being
Unless it's.
across the sidewalk in my
correct.
request.
The pavement
And
doesn't.
that may not bother anybody, but I'm just saying that's what I would try to visualize.
But if you think about possibly putting a sidewalk along Gentry,
Right.
then they're parked over the sidewalk, which is against the village.
Well, with 30 feet, you're not parking.
No,
If you park one
if you
behind
did-
each other.
One behind each other, I honestly don't think you're gonna be, it'd be pretty tight anyways. At that point, the tail end of the second car is on the curb
Yep,
line. I mean, it's basically,
Which
you've got
people
40
do.
feet, and that's pretty tight.
people do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the code is, this is a very generous code insofar as it's letting you squeeze a lot into a small space. And when you look at modern ways of living, you talk about now giving a variance off of that. Is that appropriate? Because this is already as tight as a site can be. And I think because it's a village and the houses are closer, if they come in and they're not looking for variances, there's nothing this board can do at all. It's like, okay, you're laying out, you've got the correct, but as soon as they deviate, you have to think about, does that work, right? In the context of, the modern life, right? Gotta have a 2-car garage, pretty much, around here, right? And, or he's not gonna sell the houses, right? They're gonna be very, they're not gonna be terribly desirable homes.
Is there any place nearby that has something similar
To,
what they're proposing?
In new development,
Not necessarily, I mean, new development would be great, but, if there was, I would love to actually go and, stand on the street.
I'm wondering about
Look.
Ann Grove.
yeah, I was gonna say, not the first section of Ann's Grove, but the second,
Yeah.
third,
The
fourth
first,
section.
yeah, the first
Especially
section.
second and third.
Yeah.
So if you
They're
go to
tight.
Ann's Grove, it's out in Camillus, and you're looking at the front of it, there's, the section, half of it to the right is a little different. The one to the left is
Those are
probably very
HKK.
close to the, well, that one there was just, that was an experiment that failed.
Yes.
And the one up on the hill is just, it's got a lot more grading, so they're set differently.
Right.
But the ones to the left are a little flatter, villagey feel. The lots are not, I can check and see what the lots are, because we did it, they're not any bigger than these, I don't think.
And
you
they
kind
have
of
the
feel-
same setbacks, or have they modified their setbacks?
I can look at that. They had very tight setbacks. It was a new urbanism design. It's not for everybody.
No.
But I mean, it's also very workable. I mean, it's just not, it's not for everybody. I mean, there's people that need 2 acres, and there's people that, need.
You live in the village, you're
eighth
not
of
one
an
of those
acre.
people.
Well, I mean, I grew up in the city of Syracuse, and each house is 8 feet apart.
Yeah.
Period. It's like, there's barely enough room for a car to go down, squeeze down. You make it, it is what it is. I mean, but somebody that wants, it's got RVs and snowmobiles and everything else is probably not going to be thinking of buying or parking those things here, store them somewhere. I think Ann's Grove might be a good one to look at. And they look sharp, and they're.
They're mostly.
But I think it was.
parts of bungalows.
But I think it was specifically, like, these are gonna be individually sold lots.
Yeah.
Right, and built by any number of builders. Whereas Ann's Grove was a planned community. And
It was one
designed,
builder.
and it's going to look like this, and they're going to be here, and that's, so, that's a different situation.
I can tell you right now that Parkside and Skinny Alice lots aren't much bigger. And they've got like big houses on those things.
5,000 square
They're
foot.
pretty close to the road too, huh?
Yeah, that's another villagey, close to the road type.
$1 million homes.
But you weren't gonna get a front-loaded garage either. That garage is
Right.
gonna go in the back. Or the side, it wasn't gonna be, that's another one if you're out there, you wanna check out Parkside and Skinny Atlas, those lots are small.
But are they small this way and deep?
Well,
or-
I was gonna say, I can look at the plan we did for that one there too. I think they're,
They're deeper, I think.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think they're probably a touch narrower and a little deeper.
So they can move the
General.
garage to the back for that.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
But
think,
if you wanna see how much stuff you can squeeze on a small lot, those were,
yeah. I think it's important, and it's reflected here, to maintain the standard setbacks to the existing homes that surround it, which you have done. And we requested, and we appreciate that, because those people that live there currently expect that setback. So that makes sense to me. I think it's worth discussing the smaller setbacks in the internal and in the front, because if you're purchasing a home there, you know what you're buying. It's not, it's not someone coming in and building a house next to you that's right next to the lot line. It's what's expected. it does, somewhat reflect village living in some areas of the village. Some places in the village have wide lots. I live in a wide lot in the village, but some of them are closer together. So that's, in my mind, a bit of a precedent with village character. I have a problem with the garage forward.
I'm not crazy about it either.
Well, particularly if we talk about, what Greg was saying about you've got a smaller setback, you've not got a lot of space between the house and the street, and if you get 4 cars in a driveway, which is not unusual nowadays, to have 4 cars in a driveway, then you're at the street, and that bothers me because it's congested, it's difficult to back out onto the street. All of those things I'm not fond of personally.
I have looked at some plans that may allow for going, down the side and parking in the rear. I also, early on, we had talked about a PDD where we actually had a private street because the road wasn't there and we couldn't get, I don't remember, 4 years ago, we talked about it because Gentry we couldn't figure that out.
Right.
I said, well, what if we just do a private road that was 30 feet wide and, we'd maintain it and, and have it all condo and, and have backyard driveways instead of front yard. I mean, there was all kind of dialogue, but it didn't work. It just, I've got, I don't know, probably 40 sketches. It just didn't work at the end of the day for what folks want. There are a couple of plans we've entertained. There's a possibility of, again, we brought it up, basically it's a raised ranch. They're calling it barn dominiums now, but raised ranch is where you have the parking underneath the house and a 1,200 square foot house over the top. And put a lift in so you can age in place. That's one of the things we talked about as an option. It's really going to boil down to a couple of things. Talk about aging in place. When I started this, thought I was going to build there. I probably still will, but I may not finish it. I'm 62 now. Some of these projects can take 8-10 years. I may not want to, and I'm not going to propose that I'm going to be the only builder if that's not the case. I would never do that. I may talk to other builders and get somebody, but I'm going to maintain the integrity of it. It's my last one. I'm looking forward to having fun with it.
Understood, but there are no guarantees that if another builder comes in and starts building things that don't fit the niche that you were going for or we would like to see, then we need the protection of having the setbacks and so forth. Anybody else have anything to say about my thoughts?
I echo what you just said. I think the lack of control of that, what we can control, we should try to control. Being the setbacks. So I think that's a very important part. Yeah.
I can't stand front forward garages.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't think anybody on the board cares for that.
That doesn't do the character of the village at all.
It's not village character at all.
No.
And I think that's probably one of the things that bothers all of us the most that live in the village. That, the garage forward thing is, you don't see that.
I remember on a previous project, we asked for some stuff to be massaged over for Phobes Island.
Yeah.
Because of how it was just, all you saw was a garage.
Yeah. Yep.
But I'm also, like you said, I guess I'm not keen on setting a precedent that, not that there's a ton of places left in the village to build like this and develop. Having said that, I don't know how sticky it gets for the village to be granting this variance, but the next one saying, we really don't like it.
Right.
And
thoughts on that, Jane?
Well, that's it, the variance, what this developer is looking at is for this subdivision to, for this subdivision, X amount of lots would have, a variance. And it would be looked at its own merits. I'm not that worried about whether somebody comes in on a singular lot and tries to do something. They have to go through the criterion, and you probably look for a recommendation from this board. And the ZBA will heavily on that, so, but it's not unusual for someone to come in with a subdivision and look for a variance on some lots. So that's, I'm not worried about the precedent, I guess if that's your question.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So I could have a question. So is the 10-foot that you're asking to be reduced in the back, is that something that you've mapped out extensively and that's what you really need, or is that just a number? And can it be less depending on what you design for a house?
I'm not sure question. So the 10 feet, so we're looking at, the code is 40 and 40, so we're looking 10 and 10 front and rear, so it's 30 and 30.
Right.
Now, mind you, the front actually has about 45 feet to the pavement because the easement, the village easement is there, so. But the rear yards, being 30, it's just to fit the house. Now, mind you, I still have the criteria that I can't exceed 25% of the footprint of the lot size. The house size can't be more than 25%. So I'm not trying to build bigger houses, I'm just trying to have that. If I want to try and put something in the back, I need to build a house and get a driveway past it.
Right.
That even more, needs to do something of that line. But you look at the adjacent streets, Cook Drive, if you go into the outside the village there, but that's the only adjacent neighborhood really that it's going to touch. Their setbacks are probably 25 feet off of pavement. I mean, you've got one car and you've got the house.
They're around 25 on Cook Street.
Yeah.
So we're going to be 40 feet off the pavement, so we're going to look a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
The rear yards, well, their actual rear yards versus where they're putting stuff.
Yeah.
Two different
But their rear
things.
yards
I guess to answer the
are
question,
20 feet.
we selected a couple houses and went 30-30 to make these houses work or not. Yes, there's other types of houses that maybe would work with 40-40, but
Well, and I was more asking along those lines. I mean, I know you took some existing plots for houses and kind of dropped them in here, but you also said that these aren't necessarily your designs or anything like that. So what I'm curious about is,
They're
if
fairly
your
typical.
designs can be modified such that you don't need all 10 feet, maybe it's an 8-foot setback, maybe it's a little bit less than 10 foot across all of the plots.
Potentially, and if we want to go to individual permit, the other part of this is what's going to happen is let's say there's a lot, somebody wants to build a house, and it has the 20 and 40 and 40, what they're going to do is they're going to go for an easement individually on every lot. And that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Okay.
Variance.
Understood.
So, and what you see here is not necessarily what you would get,
correct, yeah.
so.
We were just, again, trying to portray it.
Understand. That we requested that you go through that exercise because I think it's important for everybody to see, what it's gonna look like.
Architecturally, will they all have, I'd like to try and find a plan that accommodates that and fits in, that'd be great. I think, I like the idea personally as well.
Yeah.
And going maybe detached, but then you look at the ancillary structure size, now I've used 10 feet, bringing the house away from the garage because you have to swing behind the house.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, the other obvious scenario is you lose one lot on each side around the circle, that's how you get more buildable space.
Well, the only way to do that is just use Gentry Street, and they go a mile deep, and you have 8 lots instead of 26. Because to put a road in and not use both sides of it, doesn't mathematically
like,
work.
Just you say make it wider.
Delete lot 10
Oh,
and lot
lots in
5.
between?
Right.
Make the lots
Right.
wider.
Right, basically shrinking by
Take one out.
2.
Instead of having 75-foot
Yes.
front line.
Right.
Sure.
So the intention is essentially to keep everything one story instead of have a mix.
Probably one story, maybe some bungalows with upper, I think what's marketing right now is the idea of having a primary first floor. Most of what I'm talking to people and can afford to build the new ones have the larger homes in the village now want to stay in the village. The kids, they talk to kids in the state, they want to stay, they're either, taking their homes in place and making them habitable, that's why Home Depot and Lowe's are doing so good, or they're building something nearby that's lower maintenance, but they want to not have stairs or have access without stairs. So the first floor primary is the main thing, whether it's something, a bungalow or a cape that might have guest rooms or second and third bedrooms up, is certainly palatable, and one of the things that we look at, I would think would market well.
Yeah.
Anybody have any additional comments? We have a consensus on what we'd like to see in the next round. We have a list of things that we need, right, Jamie, right?
Oh, there's a whole laundry list. I mean,
Okay.
first of all, the very first thing, we need a survey and the topographical, and it's right, it's in
Yep.
whatever is in the regulations. And then, of course, we don't know anything about the stormwater, and those are all things that need to be done. And then, once you have that, then we'll need, a complete application and the SEAF, filled out. So we're a ways from being anywhere. Now, I think there needs to be a determination of how wide that street needs to be down Gentry. So that's something that, the highway. Well, what the determination is, once everyone sees the drainage and everything else, right? That's going to weigh into what's going to be required on the street and the width. So there's a lot to do.
Yeah, I think now that we have some clarity on Gentry, we can move forward
Sure.
a little bit more.
Okay.
And I'll sit down with the village, figure out a little more about the pump station, and we need to figure out what really is going to be done with Gentry itself and any actual alignment, because the plan I have is still 60 feet and stuff, and how that moves.
Certainly the infrastructure cost is going to be significant to the applicant, and one potential thought that might work is, if you don't improve this part of Gentry Street and don't bring anybody there and just sort of bring this, Greg and I were just talking about this, bring this proposed street to, I'm driving with my finger, but,
To the west.
To the east.
to the east.
You'd lose 6 lots.
You would
but
lose
they
some lots, but then
But you wouldn't have to upgrade
everything.
the Gentry all the way down either.
Then have the backyards go to the existing road and not improve Gentry?
Yeah.
Right.
Not improve all Gentry, just the front portion.
Just
the
to here.
300 feet or whatever.
You would do like a snake
Yeah, I
through there.
understand. Well, that's what I was gonna propose if I couldn't get Gentry figured out.
Right.
frankly.
No, I mean, just throwing it out there.
I mean, I
know.
think there's some
From a
options
cost
for,
standpoint, it may make more sense even.
Then, you won't have that issue with the variances, which
right,
I'm not sure what everybody's thinking about that right now. I'm not getting a real warm fuzzy about it, but it's not my decision.
right.
Procedurally, is that something that this board does, or does that require you to refer over to the ZBA and they make the determination?
Correct.
I mean, how does that work? Okay, mechanics in it.
Yes.
Yeah, without it being a PDD, you'd have to go to the ZBA.
And that was where I brought up the idea of
You can make a
PDD. So there we are.
recommendation.
I'm not sure it's an easier process.
I don't know either.
Why? We need a lot more.
Just to be frank.
I know.
But I think that particular, this board does not decide it, but this board will recommend, right? And you need some more information. But I think, the applicant, when we get some more information, the applicant should come back, because you also don't want to send them down the rosy path, right? And be
Yes.
like, wow, look at all the work he did, and there's no way we're gonna recommend on this variance. Now, again, remember, this board does not decide that, the ZBA does, and he's welcome to make his pitch, but it's not in any shape to refer right now, or for him to go to ZBA right now, it's way too premature, but there's some soft spot, sweet spot where he can't go too far, or it costs him too much money, and, we need to be mindful of that.
And I don't think I said it before, but our improvements on Gentry would be the developer's responsibility, the cost, not the village, according to the mayor. Which I
That
know,
was my-
I know
it was
you
my
know, but
comment.
I wasn't sure if they were aware of that. So does anybody want to provide any parting thoughts on lot size?
Terry, can I just? go-
Absolutely.
For the sewer, who does the sewer upgrade? The village? But they get paid in kind money.
Any upgrades that would be required to make the project proceed would be responsibility of the developer unless for some reason the village decided to, somehow cost.
I don't know if they require money by sewer fees, water fees down the road, or.
Maintenance does, but not.
But that's just maintenance.
Right.
Not the
Initial
improvement, I
development.
expected that. In fact, I've had some preliminary dialogues with Claude, who was involved and so on, and his feeling was that it was sized originally to do this project when they did it, and there's some drawings that apparently the impeller or some part of the pump system needs to be enlarged, but it's the primary structures, but yeah, we'll have.
Well, we can look at that.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
That's the case, I mean,
Yeah. So-
Yeah, I don't know, I honestly don't know enough about that.
I wouldn't have gone this far without having that little bit of, because I've done a pump station before, I don't want to do
Water,
another one.
water.
Yeah.
Not today anyway.
All public infrastructure, developer would pay for and then turn over to the village.
Turn it back, similar to the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you give any thought to I guess I'm thinking it says two-family, like a connected.
Attached, I did.
We had a drawing like that.
We've got a drawing where that fits into place, where they're attached, and I did look at that. The zoning requires that it then becomes 15,000, so you have the lot size. So the number of buildable units is the same.
Right.
And
I just wondered
what it
if-
gains for us is that I think from a marketing standpoint, I believe, unless it would be condo and something where I did it that way, I believe the detached has a higher market.
You didn't gain anything,
I
right?
didn't gain anything, yeah, by attaching them. Yeah.
Have you moved away from the barn dominium idea? Or, because I would be interested in seeing like,
Yeah. No, I
one of
haven't.
the barn dominion,
Yeah.
whatever we're calling it, options.
I mean, it's a cliche phrase, they're raised ranches
No,
for the
I
most
do.
part, or they got bigger
I do know
garages.
what you're
Yeah. It's just
Upside
a,
down ranch. It looked like one of those ones.
It's weird.
Down, kitchen was in the basement. You walked in the kitchen, then the bedroom.
over in Harbor Heights,
Yeah,
yeah,
over there.
yeah, there's a few of them over there.
Yeah.
Those over at Nottingham.
Okay, so do you have any additional questions?
Well, I guess I'm trying to get a feel for what's needed, because, I mean, to design the drainage and so on, yeah, if we lose lots and things because the physical capacities aren't there, then that's something different, or I'll lose a lot for a detention basin or something, that's something entirely different as we design it out. But I'm basically looking to see if conceptually we're okay, so that I can focus on that, because every time we move something and change something, it's going to change his engineering. I don't want to drop 50 grand on something that's got to move.
More than that.
Come on. We're negotiating here a little bit. I was thinking 30, I got generous.
So I guess, is there consensus on the setback request? Or more feedback? Sounds kind of negative maybe, or?
I don't know that they're ready to decide. I think you're gonna think about it, look at what's out there, and
Yeah.
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 I'd be happy to come back next meeting with what's consistent in the neighborhoods, and if there's other areas, I can send it to you beforehand and try and say, go drive me these.
I think that would be a great idea. because-
I've got access to, I'm a real estate broker, so I can have access to what's out there.
Visually, I think that would be helpful. That would be great, yeah.
no problem
I
doing
think
that.
Ann's Grove is a
Yeah.
good one to go look at, the older,
The section to
the
the
section that,
west,
is that right, Wes?
towards the school.
Yes. Towards Camillus,
No,
not towards Elbridge.
towards Albridge. The one towards Camillus has got some extremely small lots. I mean, they're literally, I think there's some lots that are 18 feet, which is just, or 20 feet,
Yes.
which is just,
But that's important to see.
yeah, well, you can look at the whole thing, absolutely, 100%. That didn't go very well. There's some houses there that are on lot, in that first section like this, but I think the section towards
Yeah.
Elbridge
Not up on the
is
hill.
more of lots that are this size, and they're not super steep, so you get the super steep ones up on the hill, that's a whole different feel,
Yeah.
and, you know, you're not gonna, this is
There's
pretty flat, so you're
apartments
not
up
gonna,
there also.
further up, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are good to look at. We're looking at the Parkside, that subdivision has some lots that are literally this size with 3,000 square foot houses on them. You know, the
Where's Parkside?
Parkside's in
Skinny Atlas.
Skinny Atlas,
Okay.
at the end of Orchard,
Behind Sherwood.
About 1.2
behind
million
the Sherwood, yeah.
for a house.
Are they two-story, correct? Or are they-
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Most of them are two-story, I think they're all
Yeah,
two-story.
You're getting 3,000.
Well, it's a highly desirable area, so people are like, I'll pay for that much house.
But they don't have a 25% coverage lot.
No.
No, they have small setbacks, but they're still probably in line with what these are for side yards. There, the village also maintained control of the site plan for each house. Because they were so tight that, because they're building such big houses, that they were really worried about drainage issues and that sort of thing. So there was some controls maintained on that,
Okay.
which was a lot of work for the village.
So I think the big consensus was no garage forward.
You know, I could
That's the one
probably
we
design
got.
around that.
But-
Now, what that would do is require me to kind
You
of
can't decide
commit
that.
to building or doing
suggest.
something in an architectural wing. I'm not opposed to that. It's just,
Yeah.
it wasn't, you know, I was just coming in trying to get a subdivision, then figure out where I was gonna take the market. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So this is kind of putting a little bit the other direction, say, okay, it's my best bet to,
Yeah.
you know, set up condominium and set up a 2 or 3 style plan and put that forth. Right now, I'm thinking that probably is the case and make it a 2-year project, you know?
I think the garage forward exacerbates the issue
Understood.
with the setback.
It would,
That's the main thing. As soon as you put that garage on there, you're
Crunching
bleeding
forward.
outside of the build line and,
yeah. I'll look into that.
Okay.
I'll look into, because I've got to maintain a way, I mean, what's our setback, sideline setback for driveways along property line?
There is not one.
Okay, so that might give us enough room to get a driveway past the house and put something back.
They're realistically a couple of feet.
Yeah,
I mean-
well, sure, yeah, you gotta have drainage, yeah, way to, yeah. It has to function, big enough for a weed whacker, I mean. Yes, sir.
Would it be too much to ask to see the same plan, mostly with the newer, like without like 5 and 10 on there, just spread a little bit? Because with how C obviously goes closest side, what that would look like, because that seems to me maybe a little more amenable, because we're staying tighter to the setbacks from what it looks like. I mean, so if like any 2 of these in here, so if they were gone and then all this kind of just spreads out just to see what that looks
Policy.
like.
so you're adding like
Policy.
10 feet to each lot in the road.
Just to see how that starts to feel.
Yeah. I half expect that's going to happen to some degree once we get into drainage because of the water flows and trying to detain, because I know we're gonna have to detain completely because of proximity to the river. So, but, I understand what you're saying. Because part of it might have to go to drainage, that's why I'm trying to keep the minimum lot width. I might have to lose a couple already to drainage.
Yeah.
And then times I might,
Right, and I mean, it solves a lot of issues.
understand.
So I think it's been another common
We'll review it.
thing
See if it-
from each meeting is,
Yeah.
what if we had just a little bit less in terms of this? So that, it just helps us see,
Sure.
is that the right way to kind of maybe head this, or, you know,
Yeah.
just helps
Yeah.
you visualize.
I understand what you're saying, and that may, you know, because that'll give, if I get 75 feet that I can spread over 8 lots, that's 8 feet each lot for width. It still makes for a very shallow house if we're 40-40, and especially if we want to go garage rear.
Right.
That just, it's the depths that are, it wasn't really a width issue. I've got 60-foot width building footprint. That's pretty doable. You know, it's the depth that has always been the issue without having them be.
But it does allow the garage to come more in line with the house if it's not rear
Understand.
and not be, you know, look at the C house.
Yeah, that's the one I keep, you know, focused
You know,
on.
it just gives you more space on
Yeah.
the sides.
No?
I think a lot of us like the C house.
Definitely, yes. There's not much in the second
I'll
story.
take deposits and then I'll.
We'll go to the architectural review board,
Plus, you're eating up part of the bottom if you think a stairway is like
okay?
So why couldn't you use that without the second story?
All right.
That lit.
So you got the list of the items that
I don't know, do we?
Greg and Jamie mentioned?
Okay.
Proposed survey, stormwater.
Yeah.
We just wanted a level of comfort that we're moving forward.
Right,
Good.
okay? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good to see the progress, thank you. Okay. I don't have any other business on the agenda. Does anybody have anything they needed to discuss?
Appreciate y'all coming out for me.
Okay. I'd like to have a motion then to close the meeting at 8:02.
I'll do it.
I'll second.
Okay, James, seconded by Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All set, Michelle, cast unanimously.